I'm Lisa Stone, and you are listening to Season 8 of Parenting Aces.
Welcome back to the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and in this week's episode, I am going to be talking with Danielle Lao. And those of you who have been following college tennis for a while may remember Danielle from her years playing at USC. She was one of the stars of the USC women's tennis program for her time there, and went out onto tour after she finished at USC, actually wrote a book, and I had her on this podcast when her book came out, and I'll have a link to that episode in the show notes for those of you who want to go back and listen. But Danielle and I recently reconnected on social media after she posted something about some friends of hers coming out to watch her play at a professional tournament, and just what that meant to her to look into the stands and see those faces there supporting her as she was going about her job. And I thought it would be so fun to have her come back on the podcast and talk to y'all about her life on the pro tour and what it's been like and what she faces and how she approaches her schedule and her travel and being away from home and being away from her boyfriend and all of those things that these young professionals have to deal with. Danielle is 28 now, so she's been out on the tour for several years already. She has gotten her singles ranking up to its current place of 167, which keeps her very competitive, and it's a great place for her to be. So I just think it's so fun to talk to these young pros, especially the ones who came through the college system, and hear how they're managing out there. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Danielle. Also want to remind you of a couple things. Firstly, if you haven't signed up for our tennis parent recruiting panel at the WTCA conference in New York on August 23rd, please join us if you're going to be in the area. It's going to be a great morning of great information from college coaches at all levels of the game. And I feel like it's going to provide great insights to those of you going through the recruiting process with your daughters. Also, if you haven't joined us as a premium member on ParentingAces.com yet, what are you waiting for? Come join us. We've got a monthly option for you, an annual option for you, a discount for coaches. And so we really try to make it doable for everyone. So please come take a look at ParentingAces.com. You just have to click on the join button that's flashing on the top right and see what's available. All right, that's enough of that. I will stop talking now and let you enjoy my conversation with Danielle Lao. Welcome, Danielle, back to the Parenting Aces podcast. I haven't spoken to you in a while, and I'm so happy to get to catch up with you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I know it's been a few years since I connected with you, but I'm glad to circle back and have another conversation.
Yeah. And so this whole conversation was kind of precipitated by a social media post that you made recently talking about how good you felt looking into the stands at a match you played and having familiar faces there. And I thought, gosh, this is a part of professional tennis life that we don't really talk about that much. And I thought you are the perfect person to kind of give us an honest look about or at what life on tour is really like. And I'd love to start by kind of talking about that transition, if you can remember the details, from when you graduated from USC and you had a phenomenal college career at USC, transitioning from that life to tour life and how you feel your college tennis prepared you for that.
Yeah, well, it was definitely a huge switch when I came out of college and started to compete on tour. Definitely a different mentality. In college, you can draw upon your teammates for motivation when you're not feeling so great, and you can draw on them for company too on the road. Like it was as if like if you guys were stuck somewhere in a place you didn't want to be, at least you were stuck together. But going on tour and starting from zero, you have to go to a lot of cities, maybe not the most glamorous cities in the world, to go compete to start at these smaller events. And although you may know some of the other girls or some of the other competitors at the tournament, they're not exactly, it's a little tough to say like these girls are on my side. And I talked to everyone about how I really do miss the team environment in college. It was just such a great atmosphere, especially when things weren't going well. Like somebody would come and pick you up, but yeah, on tour you're kind of a lone ranger a bit. You tend to use your wins and your losses as like the main focus, and that's initially how it starts, which is tough because you're going to lose almost every week. So and those losses, they feel a lot more lonely. They make life a lot more lonely, especially when you don't have people beside you, wanting you to succeed every week, week in, week out, just like as if you were, on a college team.
Mm-hmm. What, are you traveling alone or are you able to travel with a coach or a physio?
I try to travel with a coach as much as I can. Just really depends on my coach's availability. And in times when I don't have my coach, I've been able to maybe bring my mom along, or sometimes my boyfriend may be able to come along. And that really helps a lot, actually, to bring a little bit of home with you, just so you could find comfort in knowing that there's someone in the stands, or there's someone like after the match, before practice or after practice, that that's just there for you, regardless of your result. And so in the start of my professional career, I didn't really bring anyone along, nor could I afford to bring anyone along. So that was a little tough. But now that I've done a little bit better, it's a little bit easier to bring people around.
Mm-hmm. What's a typical day in the life of Danielle Lao these days?
Well, on the road, you wake up, you go practice, eat breakfast, you go practice, maybe you stretch out a little bit, have a light lunch, go practice again, come back to the hotel or to housing, recover, rest up, eat again, sleep, and rinse and repeat the following day.
Who do you practice with? If you're, let's say you don't have a coach with you that week.
Well, by now I've made some friends on tour, or you would say like somewhat allies, or people that that you like to practice with, or you could get good practices out of. And more often than not, they're American girls. Sometimes when you go to a new place, maybe my first few times going to Asia, it was a little tough to find people to practice with because there's a language barrier, and it's just kind of a different group of people that go play those tournaments. So you got to be a little bit brave to ask whoever to practice with you. And sometimes you'll ask 3 people and they'll just say, no, I'm all set, because they've already asked their friends or their allies to practice with them. But at some point, if you've played enough tournaments, people see, you've been around, like you just kind of develop a small network of people that normally are your go-to practice partners when you go on tour.
And it's like being back in the juniors where you're maybe practicing or warming up with somebody that you're going to see later in the draw, right?
Yes, of course. It happens every week. And actually last year I played a tournament where I warmed up with my friend Irina Falcone. I warmed up with her for the first round of qualifying in San Jose, and then we played each other on the second round, and we just decided to warm up with each other because no one was playing at the same time as we were, and there was no one else in the draw that wanted to that it would have been like too difficult to find someone new. So we were just like, okay, let's just hit with each other. And we didn't really have a big deal about it. So yeah, it definitely happens.
That's really funny. I mean, you see that in the juniors from time to time where, doubles partners will warm up with each other and then, they wind up having to play each other later or whatever. But I had just never thought on the professional tour that happened. But, it does. I mean, I think it happens more often than people talk about. Does that give you some sense of, all right, I'm in a comfortable place. I mean, yeah, I have to play my friend, but, it's okay because we're both in this boat together. And I mean, how do you switch gears from, we're collaboratively warming each other up for this match where one of us is going to get a check and one of us is not?
Yeah, the day before when we arranged to practice with each other again, I kind of thought about it, and you just think about it from the angle of that I'm a professional. I know Irina's a professional. We're not going to give each other lousy warm-ups because we know that the warm-up does not mean anything in comparison to the real match. Like when the real match comes around and they say ready, play, it's a whole different ball game. So I guess if you just like separate it in that way, it doesn't really bother you. But I could definitely see how if we both had other options, we wouldn't go out of our way to practice with each other right before we played. And I think it was just kind of the situation. We didn't really have any other choice. And so we were pushed to like make the most out of the situation.
I think that's cool that y'all are able to do that and to mentally, get to the place where you need to be to then switch gears to compete and play hard against each other. And then when it's over, I assume. Y'all are maybe having dinner together that night, right? I don't know.
Maybe not quite there, but but we had a good handshake at the net, and yeah, and I totally see how this doesn't happen very often, like the cordial like handshake at the net like after a loss, because sometimes it can feel a little personal, but I can never blame my opponent for feeling that way, because if you've emotionally invested yourself into a match and you really did put everything that you had out there, it's really tough to like switch it off, from the moment the last point ends to the moment you get to the net. Like that's a very short period of time to just put the loss behind you and have a cordial handshake. But, just everyone deals with it a different way. And so, however things happen after the match, I just accept it and just respect whatever however my opponent wants to react.
That's great that you can do that. I mean, that it takes a lot of discipline and practice, I would think, to get to the point where you're able to set things aside and, be cordial. To me, that's one of the hardest things about tennis, and then, at the big tournaments where they make the finalist who is not the champion give a speech. Like, really?
Oh, yeah, that is really tough. I think one of my toughest moments last year was losing a 3-hour semifinal match in Honolulu, Hawaii. It was scorching hot, pretty heartbroken. I lost, but I was interviewed on the court afterwards asking, and it wasn't even questions about the match. It was like questions like, oh, have you been to Honolulu before? Like, what is your favorite restaurant here? And it just seemed like kind of like meaningless talk. And I was just like, oh, wow, like this is pretty tough. But, this, in a small way, I was like, this is an exercise for tougher moments in the future. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's pretty brutal sometimes.
Yeah. I always feel so bad when even going into media and having to, sit and answer questions after a loss is, it's really challenging. And oftentimes it's within a few minutes of finishing the match. So it's not like you have a lot of time to process it and kind of get your head around it. But anyway. What do you feel like is helping keep you motivated to stay out on tour? I mean, it's been, you've had some success out there. Tennis is so cyclical, right? I mean, you can have a great week and then you can have just a horrid week, and you somehow have to stay motivated. How do you do that?
It's tough sometimes, especially when you go through certain, I don't know, I wouldn't say losing streaks, but certain like slumps in the year, or when expectations rise for you and you don't rise to, and your performance doesn't rise to them, that could be really tough. And at the same time, it's difficult to see that your hard work not showing, or you're not getting the results that you thought you can. But I think over the past 5 years, I've learned to really just enjoy what tennis is giving me, not only in terms of like the opportunity to play at these big tournaments, but also as like a way as it's like an avenue for me to be a better version of myself. Whether it's in terms of like fitness, whether it's skills on the court, or just working on your mentality, maybe dialing in your nutrition. These are all things that anyone can improve as like a human being, like, aside from, improving certain strokes on the court, fitness, whatever. Those are like the tennis things, the physical things, but all the stuff that's inside, a whole bunch of like self-awareness and self-growth, like all those things come because I want to be a better tennis player. And like when I can see it in that light, that keeps me motivated, because tennis is not only giving me, that tennis gratification, it's giving me that life gratification at some point. And yeah, so like when I go out there and it's tough to show up and work certain days, like I just try to tap into the part where I'm telling myself I'm trying to be a better version of myself, or improve my humanity, or whatever it is, like, and really stay in touch and with my own integrity when I'm going out and doing something for my game, and for the advancement of my career.
And do you kind of feel like all of this growth is for making your tennis career go better, or are you preparing for what's next after tennis, or a combination of the two things?
Definitely a combination of the two things. In terms of, we'll put an example like mental growth. Like I listen to podcasts to enhance like my tennis skills and such, but there are a lot of things that I hear like that are recorded that I could definitely see that will relate to life after tennis. And so, you just like kind of put it in your back pocket. You use it now for tennis, but you could feel, at peace knowing that it doesn't just end there, and that you could definitely use it for life after tennis.
Mm-hmm. When you first came out of USC and kind of launched your professional career, did you put a lot of pressure on yourself that first year? Do you remember?
The first year, I think I was a little bit more. I don't know what pressure, what people would say are like high expectations, or what is real pressure. But I think the only thing I put on myself was that every time I was out there competing, I had to put out my best. Mentally, emotionally, physically, I had to leave it all out there, because I felt like I was leaving my friends and my family, back at home. I was working hard, and, giving up kind of the opportunity to have a normal job and to actually start making money in order to pursue this. And, you know, at that point, I didn't know what would come of it, but, or how successful I would be. But the only thing I wanted to hold myself accountable for was to make sure that I was making it worthwhile in terms of like my effort on tour. Like I wasn't just going out there and trying to have an experience. I wasn't trying to go get like a participation trophy or something like that, or just like saying I did it and that's great. You know, I wanted to make sure that I was trying to maximize what I had. And if it wasn't good enough, then I can, you know, I can be okay with that. But, but if it was, then great, then what's next? If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Have there been points where you have considered hanging up your racket?
Oh, yes. I think around like 2 years ago, I believe it was in 2016 or 2000? I think it was in 2016, summer of 2016. I was having just quite a few injuries, a lot of chronic pains in my elbow and in my shoulders and in my ankles, and I just didn't feel, and I felt very limited with my tennis because of certain like body aches, and also I just didn't, and because of that I didn't feel like I was improving anymore, and I thought that was the end of the road. So that was when I felt like it was time to quit, and so my expectations just really dropped, and I figured maybe I'll just finish out this season, and then in the meantime, while I'm finishing out, I could kind of start networking again and probe around to see what's next for me. But Jacqueline Keiko and I, we qualified. We didn't qualify, but we won the U.S. Open playoff in doubles that summer, and so we got to play in the main draw at U.S. Open, and just being there in New York, seeing the slam just happen and participating in it just, I think that like gave me new life into my career, and it made me just want to reevaluate how I was doing things and see maybe if I can just tighten up a few screws, maybe have a little bit different mindset in terms of how to take care of my body, or just like, just try to rebuild the machine. Maybe I could do this, continue to do this, because I really wanted to be there again. And so yeah, that kind of restarted my career. And yeah, so it just came at a timely manner, and I was lucky it all just happened like that.
And so how did you resolve the pain you were having?
To be honest, I just, I started to get in the gym a little bit more. I was having a lot of foot problems, but, I started to do a little bit more long distance running with my friends, which seems like really odd that you would have problems with your feet, and then you just go out and you go run like a 5K.
Yeah. That does seem a little weird.
Yeah, it does seem a little weird, but I had been, I had been so careful with my body, and I don't know if like my reservations to push it made it actually weak when it came to competition. So at that point, I told myself I'd rather do something different, do something outside of the box than train the way I've been training for the past 2 years and be the same. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so really odd, but and I don't know if we want to get into the sciences of it like right now, but
let's talk about that, because this is very bizarre to me that that running has helped you. Mm-hmm. But talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think because I had always been really careful with my feet. I've always taped my feet before I go play and whatnot. Like, I never built the strength in my actual foot muscles in order to withstand the pounding that on the tennis court that, you know, really high competition required. And so as I made some endurance running friends, and they were telling me about, you know, building up your mileage slowly, and like they were teaching me like certain like foot and leg exercises to make you a stronger runner. And I just did it just to, you know, just to have something else to do other than tennis, kind of, but to make it somewhat productive. So I just dabbled into it, and yeah, slowly, gradually, like the strength in my legs, it got a lot better, the endurance, the cardio, and since then I've been pretty pain-free with my feet. And so yeah, I mean it makes sense in my head, kind of, but
well, I mean, cross-training, it's a cross-training thing, right? So that's always good, because repetitive stress injuries happen no matter what activity you do. If you do it over and over and over and over and over again, over a long enough period of time, you're going to have injuries. But to challenge your body in a different way, it makes sense, I guess, now that you say it like that, you know, you were, and it probably was really good for your mind too, to get out and run and do something different and have a different social group that wasn't tennis connected, and right? Yeah,
no, absolutely. Those are actually my friends that I was talking about that have come to my tennis matches too. So
that's your running friends?
Yeah, they're my running friends.
So you've turned them into tennis fans, or just Danielle fans?
Yeah. Oh, tennis fans. I guess they follow the sport a little bit more now, but yeah, maybe more primarily Danielle fans. But they do follow the sport a little bit more now, because I follow their sport, they follow mine. There's a little bit of exchange when we get together.
I love that. Did you, when you were in college, did you go to any of the other sporting events at USC?
Other than football and a couple of basketball games, I did enjoy watching the track and field meets. What else? Went to a few water polo games as well, some swim meets. So yeah, we had a pretty tight knit, like athletic family at USC. So we would go out to each other's games, and it was nice. But I think at that point I went because it was more for a social aspect, and maybe my other teammates were going with me, but maybe I wasn't mature enough to really appreciate the skill level in every single different sport, and like what it took for each sport, each athlete to be as good as they are at what they do. But now I look at it more from, for example, like with running, I look at it more from, you know, a technical standpoint, and I really appreciate what great runners, at whatever pace they can run or whatnot. That to me is pretty cool to kind of like geek out on a little bit.
I like that. I think that's cool. It's funny. And the reason I asked you about going to the other sporting events is I remember my son's freshman year of college, and he made friends with some of the guys on the soccer team, and they kind of had like this unspoken deal that, you know, I'm going to come watch you play soccer, and then you're going to come watch me play tennis. And that way we know we're going to have somebody that we know in the stands cheering for us. And, you know, it was just kind of a cool arrangement. I don't think they, you know, necessarily had a conversation about it, but I think that's just kind of organically what wound up happening, and it was nice on both sides. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I think that's great that you have this fan base that comes from your running. And I mean, speaking of fans, you know, you mentioned that sometimes you're traveling to places that aren't so glamorous. And I suspect that sometimes you're playing to very small crowds at those non-glamorous places. How do you handle that mentally? Like, I mean, yes, tennis is an individual sport and you're out there to compete and win and earn ranking points and earn money so you can keep competing, but it's also a form of entertainment. And, when the audience isn't there, what does that feel like?
I think at that point, you're just playing for yourself. And you're playing for all those hours you put in, just to see if you've made any improvements. It's just another moment to challenge yourself. And I understand how it can be tough if you don't have an audience to watch. There's no external motivation, to bring out your best. But, everyone kind of has to start somewhere in the lower ranks and in those smaller tournaments. And in order to earn the audience, I always told myself, you need to get through this part first. And so right now it's about working your game and proving that, you deserve an audience, kind of. And so yeah, there's just like small mental tricks I would tell myself. But in the start, I also was sure to tell myself that you're doing this because you love to play tennis, and so yeah, just go out there and compete and do what you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm. Do you notice if there's a crowd in the stands or not a crowd in the stands?
Well, I guess when I first step out, you can kind of survey the area and see how big the crowd is and how big or small it is. But big or small crowd, that doesn't really affect me. Sometimes my friends will ask me, "Oh, do you mind if we cheer, or does it distract you?" And I said, "It's whatever it is." I've played in loud areas, I've played in really quiet places, and so whatever it is, I've pretty much seen most of it, minus the center court at Wimbledon or Rod Laver Arena or something like that. I've played in almost all of it. So yeah, it's just accepting whatever environment you're in, and when you settle into that, you can just allow yourself to perform.
Do you feed off the cheering, or really it's just kind of background noise?
I do feed off of it when it's there, but when it's not, I do enjoy like the quiet too. It's kind of when it is quiet, the environment mimics a practice a little bit, and so I can find a way to be comfortable in that too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for sure, like a louder crowd, it's nice. It's a cool environment to be in because you don't see it too often, especially when you're playing the smaller events. So yeah, when it's there, I really enjoy it. But yeah, if it's not that big a deal.
Do you have the opportunity often to talk to young juniors that are coming up in the sport?
Not really, actually, and I was thinking about that the other day, and I was hoping to find a way to try to do it a little bit more, but it's always tough when you're in and out of town so much.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious if let's say you met a 12-year-old girl who aspired to be you when she grows up. What would you tell her? What advice would you give to her?
I'm not sure. I actually wouldn't. What I tell most kids that I do come across is like the number one thing that you have to make sure of if you want to have a long career in this sport is that you got to continue to love the game and be a student of the game, because when the love is gone, that's when you stop improving, I think. Mm-hmm. So nothing really technical, because everyone's got their own games, and no real mental tricks or anything, but just like make sure that your purpose is always yeah, it's always number one. Like, are you playing to please somebody, or playing to please your parents, or are you playing for yourself? Like, you know, I think everyone needs to understand like why they play tennis, and when they can always refer back to that, and it's a strong foundation, that's where the strength comes from, and that's where the, you know, the relentlessness comes from when you're having bad days, and that's where also, like, where the performance comes from when you're having good days, is when your purpose is aligned with you, and you know exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm. With all the stuff going on behind the scenes in the professional tennis world right now, do you ever get sidetracked by all that? Do you get sucked into it, or are you able to just kind of let that stuff happen on the side?
Are you talking about in terms of media, or
media, the ITF tour, you know, all the craziness with the rankings, and you know, getting into the different tournaments, all the stuff going on with prize money arguments, and making sure that players are being compensated fairly, all the inside betting stuff going on. I mean, there's just, you know, it seems like every day there's another tennis disaster story, and I'm using air quotes around disaster, but I mean, there's just something else going on. It's like, oh my gosh, can't we just focus on the tennis, and like, let's not, you know, are you involved with any of that stuff?
Not too much, actually. I'm with you on that, like just focusing on the tennis, and I actually just kind of, I like to stay away from that type of stuff. And in terms of media, I don't get too much attention on media, so that's just, I don't have to deal with that too much. Sometimes I'll get some nasty remarks after a tough loss or something, but it's nowhere near close to what some of the bigger stars have to deal with. Equal pay and such, and it's tough for me to dwell on those things when I feel like I have so much on my plate already in terms of, you know, practice, training, scheduling, and to me, I just try not to waste too much of my mental capacity on those things.
That's probably very smart. Do you think is there a magic ranking number that you feel like, if when I reach this point, so many things are going to be easier for me?
It's so funny because, you know, when I was like lingering around 400, I thought being inside the top 300 would help me out. And then when I got inside the top 300, I thought being inside the top 200 would help me out. And then when you're inside the top 200, you're thinking, oh, it'd be so nice to be inside the top 100. So I think it changes. Like at this point right now, it's in my mind, being inside the top 100 would be great. And do I really have a number per se? Not really. But yeah, it's funny that you asked that, because I could give you some sort of number now, but it's going to change in a year or so again, or it may not be existent anymore if I don't play. But yeah, so I think inside the top 100 as of right now is a good answer, just because you get to play in all the big tournaments. You're compensated well enough to really sustain this type of career. Yeah, so right now I would say something like around those lines. But yeah, it's always changing.
And is that doable? I mean, you're at 167 right now. So, I mean, is getting inside the top 100 something that is achievable by the end of the year, or? I mean, do you have a plan to get there? I just am curious, like, how do you think about this stuff? And, you know, how do you go about making it happen?
Yeah. somebody at around my number, it's totally possible to be within the top 100 at the end of the year. They're just people around my ranking. We're kind of waiting for a big tournament, as in like to do well in a WTA or to do well in a slam. And sometimes if you do well enough, sometimes all it takes is one big tournament to push you inside. Just because those bigger tournaments are worth a lot more points than the smaller ones. So I guess the strategy in terms of scheduling is to play as many WTAs as possible and to really prime yourself for the slams, but there's only one slam left in the year. So yeah, I would say that would be the strategy. Not to say you don't want to do week in, week out, but yeah, you want to see yourself peak at the biggest tournaments.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes total sense. And, for somebody at your ranking level, it's not a given that you're going to get into the U.S. Open. It's probably is it a given that you get into the qualies at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
And so at the U.S. Open qualies, is it 4 rounds of qualies? Is that right?
It's 3.
3 rounds. Yeah. Okay. So, and just so the audience understands, there are ranking points involved in the qualies. There's prize money involved in the qualies, right? So, yes. I mean, that's a big step to know that that's going to happen for you in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and getting into tournaments and managing your schedule is a huge part of the job. Actually, if you don't manage your tournament schedule well enough, you're going to sign up for tournaments you're not going to get into, or you're going to choose the wrong tournament to play at the wrong time, and that all just comes with years of experience, and I can't tell you that there's a certain formula in terms of how to schedule your tournaments, because different people like to set up their schedule in different ways to peak at the bigger events. So it's just kind of a personal feel thing.
And you do that all for yourself, or do you have somebody that helps you?
I do it pretty much on my own. I always try to get feedback from my coaches, just asking them, where do you think we're at right now? Do you think I need a few more matches, or do you think a little bit of rest before the U.S. Open is going to be more beneficial? So I talk it over with my team to see what they think. And but at the end of the day, after I collect all that information, it's a feel you kind of know inside. And yeah, there are a lot of tough decisions sometimes, to pull out a tournament or to push to play events you may not feel ready for. But yeah, it's part of the job.
And there are rules around signing up for tournaments and then and withdrawing, and you can get penalized. And if you withdraw, you can't sign up for another. I mean, there are all sorts of complicated rules around that, right?
Yes. And that's what makes it difficult too. You can't just sign up for everything and then decide last minute where you want to go. There's penalties and there's fines involved, which makes it tough too. And sometimes if you want to stay in a tournament that's the same, if you want to stay in a WTA tournament that's the same week as an ITF event, if you pull out of the ITF event while still being entered in the WTA event as well, you will get fined. But at the same time, sometimes you don't know if you're moving into an event or not. And it's just the cost of doing business sometimes when you got to pay that fine in order to give yourself an opportunity to play a bigger event. So
yeah, that's crazy to me that they charge you for trying to further your career and play up the next level. I mean, that's one of the pieces of the sport that make me nuts. But So
it makes us nuts, a little nuts too.
I can only imagine. Yeah. So I'm not going to say if, when you get into the top 100, what will look different for you?
I would say you just get more automatic bids into events that you want to play. You get a little bit more certainty in your scheduling, and if you're inside the top 100, you are also pretty much in every single slam. In the main draw of every single slam, and that's a pretty significant paycheck, to be in the first round of a slam.
So let's talk about what that's probably somewhere around $150,000, right? Even if you lost in the first round of all 4 slams. Is that right?
So around every slam's around like 50,000.
Oh, they're 50 now for first round. Wow.
Yeah. So
okay, so it's 200.
So it's around 200, and that's just like if you maintain that top 100 ranking, that's like $200K in your pocket without the rest of the events.
Right.
And that just helps you to afford certain things that are going to help your game, whether it's, you're bringing your coach on the road or bringing a family member on the road just to keep you mentally sane. Like all those things, they add up and they help a player to perform. It doesn't guarantee a great performance, but it definitely increases the chances. Or if you bring a physio on the road, like these aren't all guarantees, but they just increase your chances. And so when you increase your chances every week, you're more likely to have those big events or like a very big tournament, a very good performance in a big tournament, if you just show up week in, week out as prepared as you can be possible. And that's what keeps you inside the top 100 too. So it's not only tennis, it's not only training, it's management too.
Right. Let's kind of flash back to your junior tennis years for a minute. I mean, you sound so together to me. Just speaking with you and, following you on social media, you seem to have such a healthy mindset around your tennis career. Did that come naturally to you? Is this something that you had to work on? I mean, what was your behavior and attitude like as a junior player? Were you this calm and like rational? Please say no. Please say no.
No, first of all, thank you for saying that. But to be honest, no, and I've had to work at it, and I continue to work at it every day. But like I told you a little bit earlier, I listen to podcasts, just random ones, on iTunes or whatnot, just to see if I could pick up, some sort of mindset perspective from somebody that's more successful or somebody that's made their own success. And I've definitely had to work at it ever since I was younger too. And I'm probably more focused on it now just because I have an awareness for how important it is. But yeah, when I was younger, there's lots of things going on in my head that weren't helpful. And, but luckily you just have the right coaches to guide you and mentor you. And also if I was really lucky to have, very involved parents that helped me out, in the right way. So yeah, it wasn't just me working at it. A lot of people were helping me work at it too. So yeah, for everyone that's listening and thinking that their kids are nuts, it's just part of the process, and it's a long process, and you just have to continue to work at it.
When you say your parents helped you in the right way, what does that mean? We all want to know the magic formula here. So.
There's no magic formula.
Oh, come on.
Well, they were just really supportive in terms of what I wanted. So that's number one. And I think with every parent and kid relationship, it's going to be a little bit different, but I kept the communication really open with my parents when I was younger too. We talked about tennis a lot, which is not, I wouldn't say that I would recommend that for everyone, because some kids don't want to talk tennis a lot, but I just happen to be one of them that just really loves to just talk about tennis. And so with keeping that communication open, it helped for me to tell them what I wanted out of my tennis so that they can hold me accountable for what I was expecting out of myself. And especially my dad would always, anytime I was on court and I was kind of acting like a brat or maybe just not having a great attitude, he would just always remind me, like, remember, you are the one that wants to be out here. You're the one that wants to play. You told me that you want to be out here. You want to be a better tennis player. So if you don't feel like doing that today, then we don't need to be here. And so in that way, he held me accountable for my attitude and my actions. So I would say that's what's been pretty stable over the years up until now. So when I have tough days, even now, like, my parents would tell me, well, like, you wanted to pursue this career, so you have to move forward from today in the most productive way possible.
I think that's great advice. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
So you're 28 years old now, and mm-hmm. I mean, we're seeing professional tennis players. I mean, my goodness, Venus Williams, mm-hmm. I mean, playing well into their 30s, late 30s. Mm-hmm. Is that something you aspire to do?
If I could be like Venus Williams, that'd be awesome. If I can continue to improve or play at that level for that long, that would be amazing. But there is only one Venus and one Serena so far, and at this point, I just have to marvel at how they're just doing life in general. Like, yeah, they're into their late 30s and still playing at this level. It really is spectacular, actually. And to see Federer doing the same thing, playing at this high level at his age, I tell all my friends, my non-tennis friends, my running friends, that it's going to be a while before something like this happens again. And this is really something special that we're seeing. So if I could be like them, that would be awesome. If I could play that late into my career, that'd be awesome. But whatever they're doing is pretty special. So if I don't, I wouldn't call it a bad career.
Right. Mm-hmm. Do you take notes on what they're doing? I mean, you said just, that you're in awe of how they do life. What is it that they're doing that I'm talking about off the tennis court, that wows you so much?
I think in terms of their legacy in general, it's pretty spectacular, actually. Like, when I wouldn't say that I'm taking any like particular notes. I just know the effect that the Williams sisters have on our sport. And anytime I tell somebody that I'm a professional tennis player, that's one of the first things they ask me is, like, have you ever met the Williams sisters? Like, that's, like, to me, like, that says a lot about, what, the presence they have in our sport. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe I should take notes, but yeah, that's all I could really say about that.
And have you met them?
I've met Venus. I have not met Serena. I've seen her in the locker room, and she's quite intimidating. You don't want to bother her, but yeah, just I don't really know them too well, but yeah, just seeing what they've done over the years, it's pretty amazing.
What is a match in your career so far that stands out to you where you were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I am standing on this court at this tournament playing fill in the blank on the other side of the net?
A match. Actually, I wouldn't say it's a match. It just happened this past weekend. I was playing world team tennis, and I was on the other side of the court against Vika Azarenka. And I just remember a few years ago I was watching her win slams, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like she's I think she's challenging the Williams sisters and whatnot, probably the first to like really challenge them from the back of the baseline. And so this past weekend playing an exhibition against her, I was just like, wow, I can't believe I'm playing against a former slam winner, former number one. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome.
I played quite a few matches, so it's kind of like tough for me to like pull one out. But I would definitely say this is the most recent one that's like popped in my head, probably because it just happened a couple of days ago.
Well, so this is a perfect segue because we've just got a few more minutes, but I definitely want to talk about World Team Tennis and your experience there and how you got the opportunity to play. Can you kind of give us a quick rundown of how that all happened?
Yeah, so I played for the San Diego Aviators for this past weekend. I guess their team had a couple injuries, so they needed a substitute or just some local ringer kind of to show up and to fill in a few matches. So the gentleman that handles all the World Team Tennis draft, he gave me a call and asked me if I could fill in for these 3 matches, and I said yes. So I got matched up to play a little bit of doubles and singles in their short format. So it was a cool experience. Definitely very different from what I'm used to. It's very quick and it's very loud. I wouldn't say it's like college tennis. But definitely closer to it than the professional tour, I would say. But it's a really fun event, and it's great. I think it's a great segue event, or like a great starting event for people who don't watch tennis to come and be entertained and to grow and to somehow grow their interest in tennis.
Mm-hmm. Is it something you hope to do again?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's awesome to be in a different environment, and to do something. I feel like in a way this is doing something great for the sport, because it's a really great like fan friendly format, fan friendly show, and it's a nice change to get on court, and of course winning is important because you want to win for your team, but to go out there and just have that mentality that like I'm an entertainer, and this is awesome that all these people came out to watch me and to be entertained, versus when you go to a WTA match or whatnot, you go out there and the main objective is win. You've got to win because like this is your livelihood, and it's a little bit different in that sense. But yeah, so the past few days have been cool to go out and to put on a cool show.
I love it. Well, Danielle, you've been just so fun to chat with, and I love your honesty, and I love your thoughtfulness, and thank you so much for sharing that with the Parenting Aces audience.
No, thanks for having me on here, and thank you, Lisa, for all that you do. Like I really do think it's awesome that you're sharing your knowledge, or whatever knowledge you pick up from the rest of the tennis world with other tennis parents, because I remember my family was there at some point when we were clueless about what to do to go forward in terms of being a competitive junior, and my parents wanted to know how to guide me, and I wish like we had something like this when I was coming up as a junior.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. Well, I am looking very forward to seeing you play in New York next month, and just stay healthy and have fun with your running buddies and continued success on the tennis court.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And to my audience, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces.
I'm Lisa Stone, and you've been listening to the Parenting Aces podcast. For tennis parents, by a tennis parent. If you like what you've heard, I hope you'll share the podcast with your tennis community. For all the information you need to navigate the junior and college tennis journey, be sure to check out parentingaces.com.